Hola, estoy aquí disfrutando un poquito de música mono en mi cliché. Estoy escuchando a Heifetz tocando la romanza de Beethoven en fa. También está en sol una muy conocida, pero me gusta esta más. Me parece más cohesiva y la melodía parece como un himno. Yo sé que fa no es el mejor tono para un violín, pero Heifetz fue un gran maestro del violín. Estoy tocándola con mi Miyajima Spirit Mono. Pronto les traeré otro review de otra aguja pastilla fonocaptor mono. Una sorpresita que les tengo. Y estaba pensando hacer una charla en vivo. Podría ser mañana domingo. Podría ser esto yo solo, hablándole al aire. Pero si hay alguien que esté interesado, me parece que las 12 del mediodía, hora de Nueva York, sería bueno, porque entonces mis amigos en España a las 6, la gente en España comen a las 3 y a las 10 de la noche. Sí, yo sé que es domingo, pero no hay fútbol. Así que si a ustedes les interesa, espero que no haya ruido, porque me fui del otro cuarto para evitar el ruido. Espero que esto no sea un desastre ruidoso también. Pero si a alguien le interesa mañana hacer una charla en vivo, la podemos hacer. Y la pasamos bien un rato, improvisamos. Yo siempre estoy improvisando. Y aquí les dejo con la entrevista, la segunda parte de la entrevista a Soulsik, que está muy interesante. Ya saben que ustedes pueden utilizar los subtítulos automáticos. Hay instrucciones, Francisco del Pozo también puso una. Yo se las comparto.
It's part of it. It's the price for course because everyone has access to the internet.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well,
Everyone.
like I said, I'm not too much bothered by it. As you probably saw in the video, I'm particularly a person that's not too much bothered by it anymore. I had my fair taste in the beginning of my YouTube channel. Um, right now, it doesn't bother me because it's what you put yourself up to. Like quite ironically,
Right.
you started a YouTube channel. You're putting yourself out there, so you're expected to get some comments. Now,
Yeah.
people may think, oh, who is this fool, judging me? How I spent all this time making this video for them, and now they judge me, But that's what you get. And one thing that I've been doing on my channel, and I'm pretty proud to say, is if I see any comments, and I do see all my comments. So if I see any
Wow.
comments,
That's
yeah,
a lot of work.
I just see all my comments, and if I see any comment that is either not a legitimate question or encouragement or actual criticism, I do take actual criticism. So if I miss something in the review that they think that I should have included, or if I say something wrong in the review and they point that out, then I would actually pin their comments. So I'm not running away from
Right.
actual criticism. But if I see anything along the lines of like just pure stupidity, like
Or
say,
hatred. There's a lot of hatred.
or hatred, yeah, just random hatred, then clearly it's not healthy for the person that is commenting on my video. Why are you here in the first place if you hate me, right? And what good does it do for the both of us? So I straight out just banned them from my channel.
Yeah. There are some resources. Yeah, I've heard about it. I haven't had to
Mhm.
do much, but
Yep.
okay. Well, let's run away from that subject. But it's a reality, though.
Yeah.
Um, I'm starting to get questions, and I'm trying to do like a little daily show where I answer questions because I have nothing else to do. I'm unemployed. So
No problem. All the time in the world.
yeah, the mayor of LA said that there's not going to be any concerts in LA until 2021. So I'm hoping that it doesn't happen in New York City, but it will be unrealistic.
Mhm.
And Toronto has a great orchestra, by the way. I have friends who play in the orchestra there. Great hall.
Mhm.
I love Toronto. It's a great city.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I was thinking, I get a lot of questions, and I was wondering, what would you recommend, or do you think it's possible to get together a really nice sound system, not headphones, just like a nice set of speakers and amps, digital, whatever, analog. How much would somebody have to spend to have something that they don't feel like they have to upgrade next week?
That's a tough question to answer because every person varies. But I think a very good starting point of getting a really good, decent system will be under $3,000 USD, US price. Yeah. Yeah.
So $1,000 is not going to do it. I mean,
There's-
you're going to get stuff, but it's
So-
not going to.
So there's no possible way of having a decent sound system for $1,000 unless you're going full desktop, just desktop.
Mhm.
The main reason is, so there was a huge magazine post, and a lot of YouTubers covered this as well, talking about how there is no under $5,000 hi-fi system that sounds decent, or it's just not possible. And that's one of the ways. Shit Audio. Do you know Shit Audio? SCHIT, not shit.
I have a few of their shits.
So that was one of their biggest marketing pitch, basically, saying that we're going direct, we're not going through dealers or distributors to upcharge. So therefore, we are able to provide good value, and therefore, if you buy our stuff, then you can have a decent stereo system for under $5,000, which is unheard of in the hi-fi industry. Now, I don't know if they still have that up on their website, but if you go check right now, then you probably can catch them saying that. And this is not something that came out of their mouth per se, but something that came out of a lot of the reviewers from Stereophile, Absolute Sound, and quite established magazines at the time.
And they're not the only brand. I mean, there's also Emotiva and like you say, iFi. iFi does a lot of good stuff too.
Yeah.
And the SMSL.
And a lot of these brands, pitch it that way that, if you have our stuff, it's under $5,000 for a serious stereo system. Now, since then, a lot of stuff happened when things got a lot more competitive in terms of the speaker world. I mean, we saw the ELAC debut series come out and make a big boom. And after that, we saw a series of, speakers in that price range get a lot better. Like we have the Triangle Borea speakers now. We have the new ELAC debut reference speakers. And we have some of the Mission speakers. And we have a lot of speakers now in that price range that is very competitive and sounds very good than what it used to be in that price range. So now you have speakers like that. And then also you have integrated amplifiers that really picked up their game. And before there was no question, is it integrated versus separates? Separates always sound better, and that was always the case. Now we're seeing a lot more brands that come up with all-in-one solutions, or mostly all-in-one solutions that sound very close, or very in some cases even better than separates. And so that's where it really takes off. And people have this idea that it is hard to get people, for example, would rather spend $1,000 on amplifiers, $1,000 on preamplifier, and $1,000 on DACs, for example, and they don't see the value in buying one piece for $3,000, for example. Now we live in a age where that $3,000 integrated amplifier may sound actually better. So if you put it that way, then under $3,000 for speakers and amplifier integrated is highly possible, and it sounds pretty darn good. Yeah. So, I mean, I've had experience with Name all-in-ones, Hagel all-in-ones, with some of these, $500 speakers, and they sound excellent. A lot of people that actually, come in here before the pandemic would be actually darn surprised by the fact that these speakers were actually $500 or $600 or whatever they were. And they just couldn't believe it. And these are people that are used to $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 speakers. And so, yeah, it has a lot to do with the integrated amplifiers being a lot better now, and the speakers being a lot better now. Yeah.
And do you have a preference? I don't recall seeing a lot of turntable or cartridge or tone arm reviews on your channel. Do you do some analog? Do you like analog? I mean, that's a silly question. I'm sure you do. But
so my turntable setup before was just the turntable setup alone was about $20,000. And I like to see turntable as a whole different setup. It's a whole different system. So turntable has a lot of parts. Like you said, there's a cartridge, there's the actual turntable, there's the tone arm, phono stage, and so there's a lot of components that go into actually making a turntable system. And so it's very hard to actually review a turntable because depending on what turntable you have, on which tone arm, different sound.
Of course.
Versus and then what kind of cartridge, it's all about synergy. And you really don't know until you actually review or hear the actual combination. So for me to review just the cartridge, right, that is very hard to do. And for me to review just the tone arm, that is very hard to do. And that is, if I were to review just the entire turntable by itself, what are the upgrade path and so on and so forth. So I'm pretty familiar with turntables, and I think I'm going to get into that. I'm just thinking of a way to review it because just to let you know, before I got into reviewing speakers, I took about a year and a half to 2 years actually learning about speaker design, learning about speakers, doing some of my DIY work, and actually understanding some of these speaker things before actually going into and reviewing it. So I want to have a full understanding, or actually, partial understanding to do what I'm doing. So if, for turntables, I still haven't wrapped around in my head on how to review it. Because, quite frankly, when I see people that are doing it right now, a lot of the people, not all of them, they're reviewing just the cartridge and describing the sound of just the cartridge. Well, that's the sound of your setup and also your system that goes into that setup. So it's a system within a system. So it becomes a lot complicated than just reviewing speakers or amplifiers.
You're gonna have to start building your own turntable before you review the other ones, I guess. you take it very seriously.
Basically, and I actually have a friend here in Toronto who builds cartridges, and I saw the process. I have two friends actually that build cartridges.
Wow.
They're considered the best turntable experts in the industry, and I have experience with a lot of clear audio turntable experts, and it's a very interesting field because a cartridge expert per se doesn't necessarily mean that they understand fully of the turntable setup, just like how an amplifier expert has no idea about speakers.
Right.
So a tone arm manufacturer will maybe have no idea about the cartridge, and vice versa, and then the turntable. So it's funny because it's a very complicated thing, and we see a lot of people, for the lack of better words, fucking up on their turntable, right?
Yeah.
Majorly, and I've done it. As you can see, I'm pretty young, so at first I had no idea about turntables. So I made my mistakes, and I'm going to share that in the later videos. But it's a very complicated thing, and I don't want to put my foot in it per se just yet. Yeah.
I see what you mean. I mean, we have my neighbors. I have Soundsmith not too far from me, and we have Steve Lung from VAS, not too far away from me. And these people, they can make you a cartridge with the compliance that you want, with the weight that you want. They can sort of custom make it for you, even if it's a particular model that they already make. They can still modify it for your arm, and that's a good thing.
Even the platter makes a difference, right? Depending on the material of the platter, the sound changes. Material of the mat, the thickness of the mat, that changes. Like Lin turntables, I'm sure you're aware of Lin LP12.
Yeah.
It drove me nuts because I bought a used Lin turntable once, and I couldn't find the original mat. It didn't come with the original mat. The previous seller didn't include it, and I didn't know. So I put up a random mat, and it didn't sound right. So I was complaining.
They used to say that if you flip the mat, it sounds different too. But
exactly, and I complained to my friend saying, "Man, that doesn't sound right." So, and then the first thing that he asked me was, "What kind of mat do you have on there? Is it the original mat?" I'm like, "Why does that matter? It's a freaking mat. It's a fucking felt mat." And he said, "Well, it's a certain thickness. It's a certain thickness." And so I searched it up, and it's something like one inch. It's so thin. It is the thinnest it's the thinnest felt mat. And I had to go and buy it, and the damn thing was like $40 online on eBay for a felt mat because it was the original LP12. And let me tell you, when I actually bought it and put it on my LP12, it sounded actually, very much different from having a normal felt mat on there. And even the platter, right? Platter makes a difference. Heck, even the different type of what do you call it?
The weight, counterweight.
The counterweight makes a difference. And then you have the clamp.
Did you have the ETOC arm? Did you have the ETOC?
Yeah, I had the ETOC arm, yeah, and with the Valhalla upgrade, yeah.
Great, fantastic. Tell me before we go, I don't want to take all your time, but what's your stance on cables, for example?
Oh, this is a question.
Here we go.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people have different opinions on cables, and a lot of things are not scientifically proven. What I can say for sure is that cables, in my opinion, actually make a difference. And if you ask anyone on YouTube or reviewers or people that are experienced in the audio world, if you ask them, do you actually believe in cables or do you hear a difference with cables? A lot of them will tell you, yes, they do. If they don't say it publicly, they'll say it behind the scenes, right? And it makes me wonder, if so many people, experts that have heard a lot of stuff, are convinced and hear an actual difference with cables, then there must be something going on there. And way before even that really happened, and I started talking to people, and we call this self-confirmation bias. I tested in blind A/B test, proper blind A/B test. I'm not gonna even get into how to do that because people often go like, you have to do a blind A/B test. Well, guys, blind A/B test in a scientific way is a lot more complicated than you think. Double blind test is actually very hard to do. Yeah. So in a double blind A/B test, and in a lot of cases, cables make a minute difference. From my experience, it makes a minute difference. And expensive doesn't necessarily mean better. I am, for one, not, I am a person that won't recommend a product if it's not something that I would personally buy out of my pocket. And that's a struggle that I go through every single day, by the way. When a product comes in, I review it. I don't want to leave, like, I force myself and really think, do I really have space for this, right? Because if not, if I had unlimited amount of space, I would buy all the stuff that I review and recommend. So, cable, for one thing, I would not buy, very expensive cables, and that's something I personally won't buy, and that's personally something that I would never recommend on my channel. But for a cable that's quality and that improves sound for, let's say, $100, I'm up to that. And so it really comes up to you preference. And one thing that I want to leave here, because a lot of people, I've said this to a lot of industry people, and a lot of people agree with me on this, but I never said it on camera, is Cardus cables. Now, the funny thing is, Cardus never, from my knowledge, has never marketed their cables to be warm sounding. Never has. It has always marketed their cables to sound neutral, because that's what they want in a cable. No cable company wants to market their, cable as colored, warm, right? That's not rich sounding. Nobody wants that kind of cable. They want neutral cable.
The motto is do no harm.
Exactly, do no harm. It's a damage control. So Cardus cables were never marketed, at least from my knowledge, to sound warm. Yet, when people in the audiophile world think of Cardus, we automatically think warm. And that's because from forum to forum, based on people's experience, people were asking about Cardus cables, and the reply was always, "Oh, it's warm it's warm. It's a warm sounding cable. It has warm characteristic to it." And suddenly it became, a norm that Cardus cables are warm sounding cables. How did that happen? If cables actually don't make a difference, how is it possible that a cable that has been marketed by the actual company to be neutral sounding to sound warm? How did that happen, right? It's almost like I make an amplifier and I market it as the most neutral sounding, in fact, bright sounding, right, amplifier. And then all the reviewers and all the people that actually bought it, says it's warm, right?
What? I remember in the 90s having top of the line Cardass cable. I mean, top of the line, golden, whatever. And I remember that the color of the jacket was always like brown or dark red or dark blue. Maybe that has something to do. Maybe it's suggestive of warm, fuzzy colors. I don't know. But like you said, it's just so everybody has access to the internet.
Yeah.
So some crazy person goes says that the Cardass is warm or that AudioQuest is cold sounding or harsh, and people keep repeating the same thing, then it becomes that, I guess.
And it's kind of funny how you mentioned that, because one of the ideas with silver cables, for example, and the notion that people find silver cables to be on the brighter side of neutral came from the idea that you physically see it as shiny, it's bright, right?
Yeah.
And I've actually heard a lot of silver cables that were not bright, and whether that is true or not, I don't know, because I never had that kind of experience. Now, I do find some silver cables to be bright and over revealing and thinner sounding, and it's really funny because if you don't believe in cables, if just buy I don't think they cost a lot anymore. Buy what's that yellow jacket cable with like carbon it starts with a V, carbon fiber composites.
I'm not sure. You probably know better than me.
It's like a hybrid. I'll send it to you later. You can put it in the description. Buy those cables. Those actually, well, if you don't hear a difference, those will make a difference. And
really, you're saying here that there are cables that make a difference.
There are cables out there where it actually makes a pretty dramatic difference, either good or bad. And the funny thing is, like there are very inexpensive cables that people can go to that is just reliable, right? And just they sound pretty neutral. But a lot of people like to, it's a lot like tube rolling. People like, in this industry likes to experiment, change things and stuff like that. And cables are, just a cool way of doing it. And, if they look nice, right? I love sexy looking cables. So it's like a jewelry.
Everybody,
And, I don't particularly, I personally will never buy something like a cable for $20,000. But if it looks really nice, and if the person has money and is willing to buy it, I'm not going to hate them for it. But in terms of sound per se, I really personally don't think expensive is better. It's just based on preference and visuals, and also what color you like.
A lot of the audiophiles that have $500,000 systems, I mean, you don't need to buy a Patek Philippe that costs $60,000, but you get respect.
Yeah.
And some audiophiles, they want respect. They want to say these cables are $20,000.
Well, here's the other thing. I'm not sure if you know, but Western Electric cables.
Yeah, I have them. Yeah.
I have them too, right?
Yeah.
And it became like a iconic thing for like tube amplifiers and horn speaker users. And those things,
it went viral. It went
viral, and the price jacked up. And those cables to begin with don't cost a lot. But why did the price jack up? Because there was demand for it and people wanted them, right? So there's many differences. People always ask, why are cables so expensive? Well, there's many different reasons to that really happening. Now, if you don't want to spend that kind of money on it, then that's up to your preference. But for one thing, I can tell you, Western Electric cables, they're not worth that kind of money these days. Some it's ridiculous. Sometimes $1,000 for like a pair of, it's not worth it.
I got them cheap. I got them cheap, and I got the terminations, and I terminated myself, and they're very nice, but I don't use them all the time. But the same stereotype applies to tube amps. People think, and I've had tubes like KT88s, and KT120 that they sound dark. But now I have a little amp, Almagro. It's a little tiny 4.5 watts per channel, EL84, and it doesn't sound dark. It sounds beautiful. It sounds bright in a good way. It's got glow and everything.
I think a lot of the thing is, I mentioned this in my one of my videos, and one of the thing is, you see a metal dome tweeter, right? The first thing that comes to your mind is bright.
I hear Thomas talks
Sharp.
a lot about that. He talks about his preference for tweeters. Yeah.
And I think, no hate to Thomas, but
no, of course.
I think one thing that I learned from reviewing a lot of hi-fi gear and listening to a lot of hi-fi gear over the year is that that's a missed opportunity for a lot of people. Now, as audiophiles and hi-fi people, we have this notion. We see a metal dome tweeter, oh, that's gonna be bright. I don't even need to hear it.
Yeah.
Right? You see a soft dome tweeter, oh, that's gonna be nice and soft. That's something I need to hear. Right? You see a KT88, oh, that's gonna, put up a lot of balls to the sound. You see an EL34, oh, that's gonna be sweet sounding. You have these ideas already implanted in your head.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, the capacitor that goes into the unit, the wiring, the engineers.
The crossover design in a speaker,
Exactly.
the crossover, it says the most.
Exactly, and all those things actually play a big role into how the speaker projects and sounds. How a tube amplifier sounds. So without you actually listening to it, it's impossible to judge the book by its cover. Now, a lot of these notions, did come from past designs and past people's experiences with, big brands and so on and so forth. But a lot of that notion needs to really change, in my opinion. Yeah.
I was gonna say something else.
I mean.
Oh yeah. Go ahead. Have you ever had a situation? What happens when you get a piece of gear that you just don't like at all? You don't like how it sounds. Do you just send it back and say, I'm not going to review it? Or do you actually review it?
So there are many, many products that get sent back to the manufacturer. That's something that people don't realize. People often ask me on my channel, why is everything you review good? Right?
Everybody does it. Steve Guttenberg, everybody does it because they choose what to review.
Yeah, and people get people complain because they're like, well, if this is so good and that is so good, then what the fuck do I buy, right?
Yes.
And that's the question that I really like to answer is a lot of the products that you see on my channel, if you see it, it means that I liked it. It means that it passed, and it means that it's something that I was enthusiastic about. Now, if I were to make videos with, this speaker sucks, I had a terrible time with it, no one wants to see that. And, I had a phase in my channel, and those videos are no longer available now. I had a phase in my channel where I actually did negative reviews because I thought to myself, well, people want negative reviews. No, they don't, right? People were commenting on my videos, everywhere saying, why are there no negative reviews? So I said, well, people want negative reviews. I'll give them negative reviews. And I reviewed everything that came in. And when I did negative reviews, a lot of people hated me for it because nobody wants to see negative reviews. In fact, one of the comments that really changed my mind was literally a comment that said, if it's so bad, then why did you review it? What's the point of me watching this video? Right? And I think that is a very valid thing. Now, if the speaker is something like, it has a more brighter presentation, it has, let's say it's not my preference, it's a sound that I don't like, that doesn't mean it doesn't pass the test, right? It doesn't have to be everything that's my sound. And I see that specifically in the video. I say it was a little bit brighter for me, but I can appreciate that some people will actually like this kind of brighter presentation. So I, lay things out, and I hope, I know pretty much well what the standard is and what should sound, in a certain way. If I hear something that's just terribly wrong, and let me tell you, there are a few products that needed to be sent back. It's not like I say, fuck you, company, take your fucking product back, it's shit. No, none of that. None of that happens, okay? It's very respectful. I say, I tested it in multiple situations. just to make sure that I didn't make any mistakes. I double check with them. Is this the right connection to make? Did I do anything wrong here? Something is not sounding right. Could it be this problem? And I try to solve it. I spend actually a lot of time, right? Unpaid time doing this. And then at the end of the day, if the manufacturers, I never give up. If the manufacturer gives up and says, you know what, I think there's just something wrong with the unit, can you please send it back? Then I gladly send it back and report to them the experience I had with them. And they go over and see if there's anything wrong with their production model, and so on. They never share it with me because they don't want to admit their fault, but they make revisions. And sometimes I see these revisions happen, and then these review units being sent to other reviewers, and then these reviewers absolutely love it, right? So they must have done something to it, because there's no possible way that this unit just became magical, right? So I see that, and I'm perfectly fine with that, because at the end of the day, as long as the product gets revised to sound the way it should, then I am perfectly fine with that, even if they don't work with me. But yeah, a lot of products do get sent back, and these are companies that worked with me before, just started working with me. It doesn't matter if the product doesn't perform or is something's wrong with it, then it gets sent back right away. Yeah.
You should see my review of the PS Audio Stellar phono preamp.
Why?
It starts really badly. I mean,
yeah?
You will laugh your ass off. But it gets better. It gets better. But yeah, it's a classic one for me. I get a lot of respect for saying what I said. But yeah.
In terms of negative review per se, I do have sections where I talk about caveats, because all speaker designs has a compromise. Every component, it doesn't matter how expensive or how well put together, has some type of compromise that the end user will find as, it's for them to decide, right? It's not for me to decide for them, right? If I say, well, this button feels cheap, right?
Yeah.
That could be the end of the video for them. They could be like, oh nope, I'm not gonna buy that, because how the buttons feel is very important to me, right? For some people, it won't. They're like, I don't give a fuck how the fucking button feels, as long as it sounds good, right? So people have different preferences and different type of things that catches their eyes and say, oh no, this is not for me. Oh no, that doesn't matter to me, and so on and so forth. So I do have caveats when it comes to products and compromises that they've made. Some companies don't like it at all. Some companies like it, and I think it's the companies that like it that are the real companies that will move forward, because they're actually taking criticism and to heart. And we're reviewers, and it's kind of funny because I see it this way. Even if they sent the product to us, right? And we often don't pay money for it because we have to send it back anyways. We don't work for them, right?
Well, I'm not getting anything for free. I mean, I bought that unit, the PS Audio unit, and it came back 3 times. So yeah,
exactly. And
I don't owe them anything.
Exactly. And what you will notice as you keep doing reviews is they don't treat you like an end user. So I often ask if they get a little bit hot-headed or rude. I often ask them, is this how you would treat your customers?
Ah, good point.
Because reviewers are exactly that. You are there so that you experience it for the mass consumers, and report back to the mass consumers how you felt about the product. And that includes customer service, that includes the whole interaction, and that includes the product performance itself. So if the product could be excellent, but if the response from the company is in that kind of way, then that makes me question. The product could be excellent, but if something goes wrong, or if the end user doesn't like it and want to return it, God forbid, then how would the company react to the consumer? And so I always think, and I think the companies should really take that message and think about it. The reviewers, you should treat them like a customer.
Yeah, we are the face. We are the face of the customer.
Yeah, and so I think that's a very important thing here. Yeah.
And speaking of, I could talk to you for hours, but speaking of products, as somebody who's originally from Korea, do you probably have a finger on the pulse of the equipment? I know there's some brands like if it's Oren there's some really nice brands that come from Korea. Can you tell me about some new brands that are super high end or maybe affordable that you cannot find here in the United States, or maybe you can find in Canada but not here?
The thing is that I've been here since I was 6 years old, so
Okay.
I'm not really in contact with Korea, but
But didn't you work? Did you say you worked in Korea in
yeah,
studios?
in studios. But
Okay.
in terms of the hi-fi world,
Oh, I see.
per se, one thing I know is that Name Gear is very popular there.
Uh-huh.
Name and Macintosh. If you see a Korean, it's either
Yeah.
Name or Macintosh.
It's funny, people like Macintosh. I've never been into
Yeah,
into their aesthetics. I don't
yeah.
like it. It's
The
like
blue meters.
it's too much for me. It's like Chevrolet. I'm not, but I
Yeah.
can see, and
See,
they're good products. I can
but
see how
but
people like it.
yeah, but see, everyone has different preferences, right? Some people
Right.
would die for that blue meter. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a friend that looks at the blue meters and just drowns. He goes like, "Oh my God, the blue meters!" And then we have
Gets
you,
drunk.
Pedro, saying, "Wow," right? So, um, everyone has very different preferences, and our job is to report back.
Yeah.
In terms of Korea, they have very cool products there. Their hi-fi industry is pretty big. But Name and Macintosh is the ones that do really well there. And Koreans like classical music. They
Yes.
really like classical music.
I should start to translate to Korean my
Oh
channel
yes,
videos.
they would love it. And if you meet if you meet an old Korean audiophile, the first thing they will say is jazz, rock.
Yeah.
This is not music. No, classical is music because classical you have to understand. It's so hard
Yeah.
to understand. You have to study. And I'm like, okay.
You don't want to be disrespectful, but you know that classical music is
Yeah,
what made hi-fi. I mean, the first
yeah,
classical records, the
yeah,
technology was all developed for classical music, all of
yeah,
it.
for sure.
The
And
CD was made actually, classical music ruined the CD because they wanted to make it long enough so you could do Beethoven's Ninth Symphony with
yeah,
Von Karajan conducting. They could have made it shorter and better, but they did it so they could make. Same with the LP. So it's good and bad, I guess. But in Japan, it's the same way. In Japan, they love classical music and the old
yeah.
guys anyway. But the young generation, no. They listen to rap in Korea, as
Well,
you told me.
the rap industry is huge in Korea right now.
Yeah.
Um, my grandfather used to play. You know what? I used to live with my grandfather when I was very little, and I remember our alarm clock in the morning being classical music.
But do you
So,
remember the piece?
uh, ironically, it was Beethoven's Symphony 6. I
Oh,
don't
it's
know why.
perfect
I don't know
because
why. I don't know why.
Beethoven wrote it when he went into the fields, into the forest.
Yeah.
So it's forest music. It's good music to wake up. Ba-dum, bum, ba-da-dum, bum, bum, bum,
Yeah.
ba-da-da-da. Right? Great.
So that kind of things happened. And I like classical music. My girlfriend really likes classical music. She knows her classical music. I, for one, I do listen to classical music, but I listen to a lot of different music. Classical is just a part of it. I don't particularly, love classical music. Um, I do have a lot of classical music in storage for testing speakers and so forth because it's very good for testing busy
Yeah.
tracks, busy passages, and how these speakers and components handle that. So and no other music is as complicated or as
Mm.
dedicated to that kind of test.
Yeah, the texture, it has to be, especially I use some very complicated classical pieces to determine how a DAC can translate, how
Hmm.
can distinguish with all the instruments.
Yeah.
Some of them, if the DAC is not good, it just all sounds mushy and compressed.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, I'm going to let you go. But
Sure.
before we go, I want to ask you, what's so far this year, what equipment has impressed you the most? regardless of the price, is there 1 or 2 or 3 products that you think, wow, this is great stuff? I hope everybody goes for this sort of trend.
One of the things that really one of the things that really struck my mind is the Wilsonton R8 tube integrated amplifier, and it's from China. And I can send you the video because I'm terrible with
I saw it.
pronunciation.
It's an integrated amp, right?
Yeah, it's an
Yeah, I think
integrated
I saw the
amplifier.
review, yeah.
It's a tube amplifier from China for $770 US. It's a big boy, and the shipping is something like $300 something depending on where you are, but it's still gonna be
Well,
under.
if you can still get it, I mean, right now with this whole pandemic thing, right?
You still can get it, and
Yeah.
the funny thing is, the seller, the person that sent me the unit, messaged me the other day, said that he sold over 100 pairs after my review, and it sold out 4 or 5 times on the website, and so I'm very glad because that amplifier, I really loved it, and I think my enthusiasm went through the video, and I'm glad people went for it. The funny thing is that I shot myself in the foot because I was going to actually ask the seller, because all my reviews, after the review, I talk about, either keeping the unit for reference or buying it or all that stuff after the fact, so that doesn't bias my reviews. So after the review, I was going to send him an email saying, I really like it. I want to, can we work something out here so I can keep the unit here, because I really like it. And even before I sent that review, he sent me an email saying someone bought it from Canada. Can you please send it to his address?
Wow, I don't like it anyway.
Buyers first, right? So
that's right.
I mean, I can't say to the guy, no, I want to keep it when he just sold the unit, right? So I sent it out, and it's no longer here. But I seriously miss it. I'm gonna probably buy one, but I think it's sold out.
He'll come with a new version or something and give you a break, a Mark II version or something.
Hopefully, but yeah. So that's something that I've been particularly excited about. I mean, there's shipping, shipping from overseas, so there's shipping time issues and stuff like that. But I think it's very well worth it. I mean, like I said in the video, it amazed me because for under 1,500 US, right, is very well worth it. If it has to go through distribution and dealership, and that's something a lot of the people in the comment section was asking me. They're like, oh, can you work with some dealers here in Canada or in the US so that they can bring in the unit here so they can listen to it? And I told them straight out, if you go through that kind of chain, this amplifier would easily cost, $5,000.
Yeah.
Right. So it is amazing that you can actually get that kind of deal because it's going direct. And you were just gonna have to take my word for it. I mean, if you don't like it, then
hey, you can sell it to someone who's looking for it, like you.
Exactly.
They can sell it to you.
I'm pretty sure you can find someone. And one thing I like about this company is that he's very reasonable. So it's not like if someone doesn't like it, he can never return it. He's very understanding and he's reasonable, and that's something I don't want to say. It's particularly Chinese companies, but a lot of the companies, that's something rare that you find because a lot of the companies, quite ironically, not depending on, it doesn't matter if it's high end or low consumer level. Once you get it out the door, you don't want it back, and that's just the psychology of it. And
it sounds like this person is like a master craftsman. He's not like an OEM, because some of those companies you described, they're just OEMs and they just make them in a factory and they don't want to see them back. But this guy sounds like he really cares about sound and music.
And he's very passionate. When you talk to him, he doesn't talk about logistics or stuff like that. He always talk about sound and what kind of sound he likes and what kind of sound he thinks. And when we talk about the next product to review, he doesn't talk about the price range or what kind of market we're going for. We don't talk about any of those things. He talks about, oh, Jay, I think you're gonna really like this sound. It sounds amazing. That's all he talks about. And I'm like, how much is it? It's like, oh, that doesn't matter. I can tell you later. I'm like, what? Yeah. I'm like, is it even on the product page yet? He's like, oh no, I'm gonna work out the pricing later. I'll just send it to you right now. So there's few products coming my way that I'm reviewing for him.
Oh, but that's great.
But I rarely talk about, the personality of manufacturers or that kind of thing, because that's all behind the scenes, right? But I wanted to talk to people about that, because it's he's really something. And let me tell you, when he sends me something, he's sending it blindly, right? I don't get to hear it in a store and say, hey,
Yeah.
I want to review that. It's not like I'm at a show and I hear it and I say, hey, I want
Right.
to review that, which is often what happens, right? This is from overseas, and so he rarely gets it wrong. He's really dead on point with my preference.
Mm.
And that's just from him watching my videos. He's
So
like,
that's not the first that's not the first product that you review of his.
no, he sent me a speaker as well, which was a sound artist, SC8B, B8, whatever the model.
I'm surprised you remember anything after so many speakers.
And so that's a speaker that he sent, which was pretty good as well. And he sent me an amplifier as well that I'm reviewing right now. That's also very good as well. And so the stuff that he sends really makes me excited, because it's something that I can share to my viewers that's, one, cost effective and performs really well. And the only downside being the shipping across the seas.
Yeah.
But knowing the
But
guy,
that's
okay,
understandable. I mean, if the product
yeah.
is not expensive, it's probably very heavy.
Again, now
Uh,
if this was a story where it was someone that I didn't trust and didn't trust his business model, then that would be a problem. But he someone that just through email exchange, that I can understand that he's very passionate about what he does, and something that I can trust, with the overseas shipping, right? Because there's many things that can go wrong with overseas shipping, and you have to be prepared to handle that, and he is very much prepared to do that. So yeah.
was Soulsik. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
No problem. No
Thank
problem.
you.
No
You know,
problem.
I'm gonna have to send you a case of wine as a thank you. We've been over an hour here. Are you old enough to drink?
I am, but I don't drink.
Oh, good. All
I'm
right.
not a drinker.
Well, look, thank you so much.
No problem.
I will put the link of your channel, but I'm sure everybody knows your channel. But we have a big following in Spain, in Mexico, and Argentina. Great audio files, and they know that they can watch your. There's a way to translate with the captions into any language. So I'm sure those who don't know your channel, I'm sure most do. They'll be excited to see you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, and looking forward to talk to you another time, and looking forward to the next episodes.
Sounds good. Have fun editing this.
Take
Thank you.
care.